how to prep your logo for when you're working on it, okay? And what you need to do is basically you want to take your logo file and any element that you plan to animate, okay, on its own or together with something else, you want it on a different layer, all right? It's just going to make your life that much easier when the time comes. All right, so one of the things you're going to see is you're going to create a composition and keep the default setting, which is 1920 1080. All right, so what I'm going to do is I've got After Effects open, all right, or I had After Effects open, and I accidentally closed it. And I'm going to bring the shop logo in, but before I bring the shop logo in, I've got to adjust it, all right? And I'm just going to pull the DVC logo up. Okay, currently right now, it's on one layer, all right? So if I bring this into After Effects, I'm going to have a logo with one layer, and I'm not really going to be able to animate it the way I want to animate it. And it kind of becomes, I can separate it in After Effects, but really, it's not the easiest way to do it because we have Illustrator. So what I'm going to do, all right, is I'm going to create the amount of layers I need. So totally, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers. Currently, I have 1. I'm going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And I'm going to take these pieces and I'm going to ungroup them. All right, make sure they're ungrouped. I'm going to grab this and I'm simply going to cut it. Command X. All right. Now I'm going to go to layer 6 and I'm going to say Edit, Paste, and Place. When I do that, it'll drop it right back where it was, but on layer 6. All right. I'm going to do the same thing with this. Cut, layer 5, Edit, Paste, and Place. Cut, layer 4, Edit, Paste and place. You guys get the idea. I'm going to stop saying it. Here and then here. Okay. Now I want this. Okay. And I'm going to ungroup it. And I want this to be on its own here. Oop. Sorry. Look at that. I didn't even listen to myself. Right. So now I have all of the elements on their own layers. Okay. And I'm going to save this. You also need to choose which version you want. Okay, so what you can do there is just delete the other versions and scale your artboard. Okay, but we're going to do that in a second. All right. So currently, I need to save this as I'm basically going to put it on my desktop and just call it DVC logo animate, so that I know it's the version I want to animate. All right. Now, I just got done telling you that the file size or your screen size will be 1920 by 1080. Okay. After Effects is not a vector-based program. It's a raster-based program. So if you bring in your logo and it's this big, and you try to scale it to the size of 1920 by 1080, which is basically HD, all right, it's actually going to pixelate because After Effects is not a vector-based program. So I need 1920 by 1080 pixels. So I'm going to go into my document, and all I'm going to do is right-click on my ruler and change it to pixels. And I'm going to go to my Artboard tool, and I'm going to go to my Properties panel, and I want this to be 1920 by 1080. All right, and this is the size of I need it to be. Now you can bring it into After Effects afterwards and shrink it down. That won't distort it, but scaling up will. I'm simply going to grab all my pieces. I'm going to hold the Shift and the Option key, and when I do that, I can scale from the center. All right, and I'm going to save my logo. So now I have a giant logo for After Effects. Okay, so now that I've done this. All right, and I've set my logo size to 1920 by 1080. I can simply bring my logo in, and that'll set my composition size. If you remember right, you can actually set your composition based on the artwork that you bring in. So I'm going to take that logo I just created, which is right here, all right, and I'm going to drag it right in here. All right, excuse me, here. There we go. And I want to set it as a composition, and I want to set it as document size, and I click OK. Now I have a composition and assets, each particular logo piece. All right. So now I can double-click inside my composition, all right, and now I'm inside my layout, my composition. Okay. Keep in mind, there is no actual background to this. The artboard or the surface color doesn't really exist. All right? So if you want a color in the background, what do you got to do?
Surface block.
Make a shape or a surface block and just tuck that in the background, right? Make it a color. All right? I don't care right now, so I'm simply going to change my composition settings, all right? And I'm going to go in and make sure that this is white. So in my composition settings, the other thing you need to change is you need to make sure, and I've done this already, that your duration is 10 seconds. These are seconds, milliseconds, minutes, hours. Okay? So 10 seconds as a max. You may not use all 10 seconds, you may not need to, but 10 seconds as a max, okay? So you set your logo file to the proper size, you bring that in, your composition will be the proper size, and you just change it to 10 seconds. Everybody cool there? All right. What I had you do in your lessons will be much more difficult than what you're actually going to do with your logo. All right. The requirements for your animated logo are simply one keyframe animation and one preset animation. That's it. Okay? I am not making you do anything crazy. This is an introduction into After Effects. You're going to have time, more than likely, all right, to play a little bit more, all right, and mess around a little bit more. But what I had suggested to Mackenzie when she began this process, just started, I said, what I would do if I were you is I'd get a logo animated that is really simple, really basic, and does what I ask. Okay? So that you know you can hand it in. All right? Then I would duplicate that, and I'd just go nuts with it and see what I can mess around with. All right? So here's my piece, and all I'm going to do is I'm then going to grab all my components. And the one thing I don't like about this in After Effects is I have to click on this first and then hold the shift key, and it'll scale proportionally. I find that a little bit annoying. All right? But basically, if I wanted to animate this for what Mr. B wanted, all right, very simply, I could take these pieces here. So I'm going to look at my layer 6, layer 5, layer 4, and layer 3, I believe, right? There we go. Okay? I'm going to take these. I'm going to click on them. I'm going to hold the shift key, and I'm going to slide them out of here. Okay? I want them off screen for a second. Because all I want them to do is come back in screen. Follow? All right. So I'm going to take these guys, and I'm simply going to put a keyframe in for position, which is basically blank. And then I'm going to click on them, and I'm going to bring them right over here. Oh, sorry, I already screwed up. I'm going to go, I don't know, here. I'm holding the shift key because that allows it to go on the same plane. I won't go up and down. I'll slide on a vertical line. All right? So now I have one animation component that Mr. B wanted. Keyframe. Okay? Now if I wanted to do a preset, so let me scoot these guys away so I'm looking at them. I'm going to take basically 2 and 1. And you can name them, by the way. You guys know that. Hopefully you went through the lessons. Oop, I don't want to do that. All right? You can go in and you can rename them. All right? So I could tell it what it is, which would make sense, but I'm going to do this quickly. All right? Layer 2, layer 1, I'm going to go to my animation presets up here under Effects and Presets. And there's some really fun ones, but I'm going to say, let's do Transitions, Dissolves, and let's do Block, Dissolve, Digital, and drag it onto 2 for a second, okay? And now I'm going to go into my layer, into my effect, and my Block Dissolve is right here, and you can kind of see what it'll do. Okay? Now I could copy that to the other line, or instead, maybe what I want to do is, if I'm here, by the way, you hold the shift key, it snaps to your keyframes, which I find super helpful. If I go to layer 1, and I take the exact same one and drag it onto layer 1, now they both do this. Okay? Maybe I want to take this effect from this layer here, okay? Nope, give me layer 1. There we go. All right. And I'm going to drag my Block Dissolve piece, this guy. Come on. There we go. This and this, and I'm going to bring it over here. So that when this animates, basically you get this, you get that, then you get that. Done. Now all I need to do is sort of reverse it so that it does the opposite and just kind of keeps looping. That is literally all I'm asking for here. Okay, is it a ton of creativity? No, but it's enough points. Okay? If you handed that in, that's probably somewhere within the range of an 85 or a 90. Okay? I am not asking for a ton here on this particular project because this is an intro to After Effects. The idea is I want you to experiment a little bit. So I would do this, I would save it, okay? And then I would maybe take it and be like, all right, now I want to mess around with some of these presets. And now I want to really, now I want to do a keyframe animation where it comes in like this or it does something. Or if you look at some of the samples I gave you, or there's also a link to Dribbble where there's some animated pieces there as well. Maybe there's something you see you want to try. All right. There's some really, really cool stuff you can do. Yes?
I really love to, of course, once we